Greetings jaywalkers and moontrackers. In this video we're going to go back in time. We're going to go back to the time in pop music before the Beatles. We're going to be going back to North London, to the Holloway Road and the studio of Joe Meek. Welcome once again to Baggy Hi-Fi, this YouTube channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community here in the UK. As my cousin Derek the Redcoat described at the beginning of this video, today we're going to be looking at some recordings from the early 60s, over 60 years ago in some cases, all produced by the genius that was Robert George Meek, better known as Joe Meek, record producer extraordinaire. Probably the first record producer who was identified as an artist in his own right, in a sense, because he used the studio like an instrument, and was very innovative and pioneer in sound and effects and tape manipulation, all with very limited means, because Joe Meek produced, as many of you will know, just above a shop, in a flat above a shop in the Holloway Road, and apparently other record producers at the time in the UK were, with recording in fancy studios, are very jealous of what Joe Meek could produce with those limited means. And Joe Meek was the genius behind many big hits of the 60s, of course, Telstar by the Tornadoes. I think that's the first UK record that was #1 in the US Billboard chart. That would be 1963, I think. And actually Telstar was supposed to be Margaret Thatcher's favourite record, but I believe that's not true. It was her son and daughter's favourite record. But never mind. He was also behind big hits by Hines, John Layton, and the Honeycombs, Have I the Right, one of his classics. All those are quite easy to find on still on 7-inch. So in this video I'm going to show some new releases of old material by Joe Meek, some that are already in my collection, and other originals that I've recently gathered. I do love Joe Meek's productions. They manage to be both futuristic and nostalgic. They're nostalgic because they summon up that sound of how music sort of sounded before the Beatles, but uniquely Joe Meek. The sound of the clavier line keyboard, the echo, the compressed sound, very, very distinctive of the Meek sound. Yeah, I do love Joe Meek, and I've been listening to him for many years. I'll just show you what is available on CD, because you can easily get a compilation like this. The legendary Joe Meek presents, and all the hits are on here, like Johnny Remember Me by John Layton, Just Like Eddie by Hines, Tribute to Buddy Holly by Mike Berry, and Screaming Lord Sutch, Jack the Ripper, more of which we'll hear of in a few moments. Now this is not available anymore. There's a 2-volume set of the Joe Meek Story, which was on Sequel Records. It's a double CD, brilliant compilation, and part 2, that's it, 304 Holloway Road. If you can get these, I really recommend these as great collections of Joe Meek's output. This is a good one of his instrumentals, intergalactic intros, the Joe Meek collection. 32 tracks on that one. You can get very cheap compilations of the Tornadoes. And if you want CDs of the Honeycombs, that's quite easy to get. There's a reissue of their first album on CD. I think that was on Repertoire, 1990, that one. And quite nice RPM box set of the Honeycombs, which came out a couple of years ago. Now on vinyl, compilations on vinyl, these are still easy to get. This is Joe Meek hits from 304 Holloway Road. This includes some great ones, including Mr. Lovebug by Ian Gregory, Night of the Vampire by the Moontrackers. That's where Joe really goes to town with the spooky sound effects and scary echo. And this is a nice compilation. Again, you can get this one, I think, on Amazon. This is the Emotional, Cosmic and Occult World of Joe Meek. Nice UFO on the back there. There's some great ones on here, including Night of the Vampires on here again, and Valley of the Sarus. Now that is taken from Joe Meek's I Hear a New World, which is just his tape manipulation. You may know that one. That just shows you how innovative he was. It's just instrumental, very sci-fi oriented sounds, very eerie, I think, as well. But more of I'll mention about I Hear a New World again in a moment. So that is what is sort of fairly available. Now, originals of original 45s of Joe Meek Productions fall into two categories. I mentioned earlier on about the Honeycombs and the Tornadoes. Fairly easy to find on originals on Decca or Pi. Now here's slightly later, 1964, 1965 Freakbeat releases. The sound changed slightly. They're really quite pricey these days. But what has been exciting over the last year is that Cherry Red are issuing some previously unreleased recordings, Joe Meek sessions, and they are under the title of Joe Meek Tea-Chest Tapes, 10-inch releases, all with these nice generic covers. Now the first one that came out is the Hines Sessions. This is volume 1. Lots and lots of info on there. 10-inch comes out like this. I don't normally like 10-inch records, but it just seems to fit for that era. Nice custom label of a tape spool, magnetic tape spool there. Now Hines, with the blonde hair, was a Joe Meek protege, and on here there are some guide tracks, some guitar sessions, vocal sessions, demos. Very interesting. Hines wasn't the greatest of singers, but somehow Joe Meek managed to produce gold out of limited means. So that's the first volume, which came out last year on Cherry Red, of the Tea-Chest tapes. Now the second one is one that seemed to sell out very fast, and it's the Telstar Story. Now if you want to hear about or see about Joe Meek's tumultuous life, he committed suicide in 1967 and shot his landlady at the same time, the theory is. You can watch a film called Telstar, the Joe Meek Story, and I do recommend it. It shows how driven he was as a character. I'm afraid it does feature James Corden acting in it, but don't really let that put you off. This is the second volume in the Tea-Chest tapes. Telstar Story has the Telstar vocal demo by Joe Meek himself, wailing away. Not the greatest of singers, but a genius in sound, of course. That's what we're celebrating here. A vocal version of Telstar called Magic Star by Glenda Collins, and I do hope that future volumes of the Tea-Chest tapes will include Glenda Collins, because she recorded some brilliant tunes for Joe Meek. A singer she was. Alternate edit of the Tornadoes Telstar, and the sound effects tape, which you can hear at the beginning of those whooshing rocket taking off type sound effects that you hear at the beginning and end of Telstar. So this is really essential. Again, lots and lots of information and nice packaging as well. Now the third volume of the Tea-Chest tapes is coming out in April, and it's going to be previously reissued parts of I Hear a New World, that experimental album that I mentioned a few moments ago. So that will be Joe work with tape, with echo, with reverb, with all kinds of magical jiggery pokery that he produced. So that's going to be really interesting. Volume 3 coming up soon. So I'm going to do a few needle drops now, and after that I'm going to show you some older Joe Meek material that I've managed to buy recently. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm now going to show you just a few 7-inch singles, 45s originals, which I've got, which are Joe Meek productions. Now, Screaming Lord Sutch, another character from the early 60s UK rock and roll. Screaming Lord Sutch, if you grew up in the 70s or 80s, you'll know him, or you'll remember him as a wannabe MP. He was involved in politics and he led the Monster Raving Loony Party. Apparently he was quite a serious, he did have policies, and but he was extremely eccentric in image, and that all started from being a rock and roller in the early 60s. He had this scary sort of Jack the Ripper type outfits with a top hat and makeup, and he was also famous for having longer hair than any of the Rolling Stones. And one of his classics is Jack the Ripper. Screaming Lord Sutch, Jack the Ripper. And I just think, might be being a bit pretentious here, but I do see Lord Sutch as being part of that British music hall tradition. And I do also think that he was an influence on Dave Vanian of The Damned and his sort of vampire makeup. And I wonder if that's true. And I'm sure that Dave Vanian or Vanian wouldn't mind acknowledging that debt to Screaming Lord Sutch. I'm going to do a needle drop of this, but also show a clip of scary Lord Sutch terrorising his audience in the early 60s. And here's another original on Decca by Screaming Lord Sutch. I'm a Hog for You, Baby. And on the other side is Monster in Black Tights. There's quite a lot of humour in Screaming Lord Sutch's records, and I'm really glad to have a couple in the collection. Here's one on Parlophone now, another Joe Meek production by one of his instrumental bands, the Packer Beats. And I think the A side of this is Gypsy Beat. There it is. I'm going to do a needle drop of that. Very nice stuff. After these needle drops, I'm going to show you a compilation that I've been after for ages, a nice copy, and that'll be the end of this video for now, this celebration of Joe Meek gems.
There's a man walks the streets of London late at night, with a little black bag that's oh so tight. He's got a big black cloak hanging down his back. Well, that's a one big cat that just hate to fight. Well, he walked down the street, every girl he meets says your name is Blood.
South of London kind of never say yay. Whenever Jack the Ripper ever shows his face, Jack the Ripper. So you pretty little girl, you better watch your style. The Ripper, Jack the Ripper.
I'm a hog for you, baby. I can't get enough of your love. I'm a hog for you, baby. I can't get enough of your love. When I go to sleep at night, that's the only thing I dream of. One little Baggy went to London. Yeah. One Baggy went to Liverpool. Yeah. When this little Baggy's coming over your house, it's gonna knock you all night long. 'Cause I'm a hog for you, baby.
Well, I showed you at the beginning of this video some comps which are still available of Joe Meek recordings, and this one is one I've been after for a while, or at least a nice copy of, and this is a compilation which came out in 1977 on Decca, and it's the Joe Meek Story. And every time I've been trying to find a copy of this lovely comp with this nice glossy cover, it's either been very expensive or just battered. So I managed to find a reasonably priced one in good condition recently. It was on eBay. Double, lots and lots of copious liner notes, and some of the tracks on here are ones I didn't have elsewhere, so that's another reason why I wanted it. I mean, Telstar is on here, Monster in Black Tights, Screaming Lord Such, Country Boy by Hines, some well-known ones, but some other lesser-known ones, Christmas Stocking by Roger Laverne and the Microns, and Freddie Starr. UK viewers will remember Freddie Starr as a Liverpool comedian. In fact, he went to my school years before I went there, my secondary school. Life on Venus by Tornadoes, Saxon War Cry, which I think I'm going to do a needle drop of. So if you do see a copy of this one, this is probably one of the best comps of Joe Meek material. But do look out for those, if you like Joe Meek, look out for those T-chest tapes while they are coming out, because they are absolutely essential. So I hope you enjoyed this short trawl through some of the Joe Meek material which I have in my collection. Hopefully I'll be gathering more as time goes on. Hope everyone is well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.